Well, great. We are just getting started here, and this is Ryan. I am with Mid-Atlantic Collectibles, and it is my honor and privilege to be joined by no other than Dennis McLain, Denny McLain, baseball legend. And we're here to talk a little bit about himself and his background because he's going to be the special autograph guest at the uh, Mid-Atlantic Sports Collectibles and Memorabilia Show in Silver Spring, Maryland on Saturday, May 18th. Mid-Atlantic Show being the largest card and collectibles show inside the Washington, D.C. Beltway. And that's an area, a region that is no stranger to Denny because he played for the Washington Senators for a period. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that, but just very briefly, a little bit of biographical information. And Mr. McLain, I'm sure you'll correct me here on anything I get wrong, but it's an incredible resume in baseball. A World Series champion, American League MVP, a two-time Cy Young Award winner, three-time All-Star, last 30-game winner. I wonder if you ever get tired of hearing that. I'm sure that's something you hear quite a bit.
No, it's very nice to hear.
Good. And an incredible personal story that really, ranges from the absolute pinnacle of the game of baseball to, some very real depths and hard times and hardships. And it's just it's a real treat to have the opportunity to sit down and talk to him and glean a little bit of his wisdom and experience and hear a little bit about his life and his journey and his baseball career. So, Mr. McLain, thank you for being with us this evening, and thank you for joining us this coming weekend.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it. I haven't been to Maryland in, I don't know, 100 years, I think. I mean, I certainly could be nearing 100 years, but it's fun. Just listen, I travel an awful lot, and gets a little tougher now that I've hit the old 8-0.
Yeah.
And but now that I hit 8-0, I want to hit 1-0-0.
Good.
So as long as you know what the biggest thing is your faculties. As long as you got your faculties, you can do an awful lot of things at 75, 80, 85 years old. And I know, and all of a sudden now I know an awful lot of people that are 80 years old.
Absolutely.
And, I didn't realize how many guys were older than I was on the ball club. I mean, every guy that's alive, with the exception of one, and we've only got a handful left, 5 or 6 guys, they're all in their low 80s, middle 80s. So I still feel like, with the exception of one guy, John Warden, I think I'm still the youngest guy that was on the team. But
so you're saying there's about,
but even he's 78.
So you're saying there's about 5 or 6 of you left from the '68 team?
Yeah, that's all. We had a spree there for a while that, God, it seemed like every week we were losing one. And the guys that are still with us, for instance, Mickey Lolich, he is, I don't know if he's still bedridden or in a wheelchair, but he's had some real tough times. I'm trying to think. Mickey Stanley is great. It looks like he can play tomorrow, our center fielder, the guy who they moved to shortstop during the World Series. Kaline, of course, died about 1.5 years ago. John Warden, who was a relief pitcher, a left-handed relief pitcher, he's still well, relatively so. And I'm trying to think who else. One of our relief pitcher, Daryl Patterson. Daryl Patterson has got Alzheimer's, unfortunately. Donnie Ward, our third baseman, he's been quite ill for quite some time. So that's about the crew that we got left.
Well, I mean, you may be near 80 years old or 80 years old, Mr. McLain, but nothing wrong with your memory. I mean, you just rattled off all those names off the top of your head.
Well, at times, yeah, but at times it's a test. Listen, I can tell you what happened 40 years ago. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, if I did. So, I mean, and every time I mention that to somebody, there'll be somebody in the group that says, "Boy, isn't that the truth?" And then somebody said, this stuff Prevagen, not to knock Prevagen, by the way, but this Prevagen. I took Prevagen for a while. Jesus, my memory got worse. I didn't know what to do. So, but then my memory just stayed worse after that too. So it didn't make any difference.
Well, there's so many of those. I mean, I wouldn't even couldn't even keep up with the different memory things they've got out there for people to try and keep up. Well, let me go back to a little bit. I'm gonna back you up even further, if that's all
Okay.
right. And let me ask you this, kind of as a young person, who were before you got to the big leagues? Did you have baseball heroes? Who were your baseball
Oh
heroes
yeah, I
growing up?
was born and raised in the Chicago area. I was a big Cub fan. My whole family was a Cub fan, and my heroes were the guys that were the stars. There was only one guy that really wasn't a star, and I wore his number 17, my entire career. He was a right-handed pitcher, a big guy. His name was Bob Rush. And the only reason he became my hero is because we were at a Cub game, the only Cub game I was ever at in my life, with my dad and my mom. And my dad caught a foul ball off the foul ball bat of Bob Rush. And then he handed me the ball and says, "Here, go down there. They just took Mr. Rush out of the game." Asked him for an autograph. Went down. He was very kind. He signed the ball. So my dad took the ball away from me and said, "Whatever you do, don't play with this damn ball. Whatever you do." So that had to be something that he thought about immediately. So the next night we come home from school, and lo and behold, all we had was one ball that had been chewed up by the dog and everybody else. And my neighbor said, "Why don't we use the ball that you got at the ballpark yesterday?" I said, "My father will kill me." I said, "Don't you dare touch that ball." Well, I had to go in that. My mother called me in the house for something, and I went in the house. By the time I came out, my next door neighbor had grabbed the ball and they were playing catch.
Oh
And,
no.
and and already it had some grass stains on it. And I said, "You know what? You guys have just eliminated me. My dad's going to kill me. My dad is going to
Yeah,
kill
you're
me."
getting the blame for that.
Oh, I got it, boy. I got it too. More ways than one, I got it.
Yeah.
So that was the Bob Rush picture. But I had number 17 my entire career.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, really was.
And and obviously, you were an incredible athlete early on. Did you know when did you think, or when did you know you had the stuff for the big leagues? Did you
What's
always
inter-
believe that?
Yeah, what's interesting is I never knew it. When my dad died when I was 13, and he had a heart attack, and he had told me, for some reason, he started developing me when I was 8 or 9 years old, 7, 8 years old. We gave him a phony address in the city about 20 miles from us, so they could get me in their little league program. Well, the guys that we went over to see, they didn't know that I was only 7 and not 8. And so I went in there, and they said, "Yeah, yeah, well," because I was a little smaller at that time at 7, and the guy said, "You want your son to do some batting practice?" He says, "Yeah, yeah, I really want you to see him hit." So I went out there and apparently impressed the manager, and the manager said, "We'll take him. I'll get him on the team somehow, some way." Well, we come back for the first game a week later, and lo and behold, we were met with "I'm sorry, we found out you're not living in this city, and you got to be in this city in order to play." So,
Hmm.
what my dad did, a week and a half, 2 weeks later, found a sponsor and went out and started Little League Baseball in our own town and did our own thing. He was quite a man, and from that moment on, he worked with me all the time. He made a statement to me when I was 11 or 12, short time before he died. He said, "You know what? One day you're going to win a big time award in the major leagues." I don't know what the hell he was talking about. And I said, "Yeah, Dad, okay." And lo and behold, we had a couple Cy Youngs, we had an MVP, but the biggest thing we ever did was win the World Series.
Well, I'm sorry you lost your father at a
Thank
young
you.
age. I can tell you were very close with him.
Yep.
I'm very fortunate to have both of my parents still alive,
Good
and
for
I'm,
you.
I'm
That's great.
feel, but he was obviously a tremendous coach as well, and took.
Oh, the best.
Yeah.
My dad was offered a contract with the Cubs when he was 18 or 19, and he got drafted into the military. Well, when he came home, my mom and he had been married on a break when he came home for R&R. And before he left, apparently my mother became pregnant and had me. But in the meantime, my dad, I forget what the hell I was going to say, but my dad, by the time he got home, I was already born. And so what happened there was all of a sudden he's got a son that's a year old, year and a half old. And the next thing you know, he gets I know what it is now. He gets the offer to play with the Cubs because the
Mm-hmm.
Cubs had talked to him before he left for the military. And my dad come running home with the contract from the Cubs and showed my mother. And my mother said to him, my mother, by the way, was a Polish Jew. My father was an Irish Catholic. Figure that house out in the 40s.
Yeah.
And the people wonder why I was confused. And so, anyway, my dad says to my mom, listen, Betty, I just got a contract here from the Chicago Cubs. It was like
Wow.
$300 a month in Guam, like, one of those cities.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother said to him, does that mean you have to travel? And he said, yeah, of course I do. We go on the road every week or every week and a half, but I'll be home, every other week. She says, well, you got two choices in life. We all have many choices in life, my mother said in her Jewish dialect. She says, I want to tell you one thing. She says, you can either live with your little boys playing baseball the rest of your life, or you can play with me the rest of your life. What do you want? Thank God he married my mother.
Well, she was not. She was very clear, unequivocal. She was very
Very, very,
direct.
very clear. Very clear. There's
Yeah.
one thing
Now,
my mother was, pal, clear.
yeah. Now, is he the? I've heard, and tell me if this is right. I mean, you were mostly fastballs. You're famous
Yeah.
for throwing almost exclusively fastballs.
In a
Did
major
is he
league
the one
ball
that told
game,
you you just throw
well,
fastballs?
no, no, it wasn't him. The one thing he worked on me with, first of all, he would never let me throw a curveball or a slider when I was young, 12, 13 years old. And of course, after he dies, now I go out there and I'm going to test everything. It almost cost myself my career. But he worked with me with my windup, with my momentum, with my leverage. He taught me how to that high kick. Bob Rush I told you about. He had this high kick. And my dad just thought it was really impressive, except he didn't think Rush got behind like you hit a golf ball. You stay behind the golf ball when you hit the ball with the golf club. Same thing with pitching. You get behind the ball and you get your leg in front of you and then you follow it all down all together. All of it's supposed to move at the same time. And that's one thing he taught me how to do. And so by 11 or 12, I'm striking out everybody because I got such a good fastball. I'm not the biggest kid, but I'm good size. And I got a scholarship to Mount Carmel High School in Chicago, which was like a prep school to Notre Dame. In fact, Notre Dame offered me the first baseball scholarship they ever offered in history,
Wow.
which we accepted at one time and then turned down because several of the clubs showed up with checks for 17,500 to sign, and 17.5 back in the early '60s was quite a bit of money.
Sure.
So my dad had died, and we were hurting a little bit, and so the 17.5, just to show you how things have changed. 17.5 paid off our house, paid off our car, paid off all of our bills, and I still had $1,700 left. So it was good times there for a while, but it was one of those times that everything came together for a long time, and it was an awful lot of fun. Then I had a brother. My
Hmm.
brother was born a couple, 4 or 5 years after me, and unfortunately, he died of alcoholism later on, about 45 years old. Geez, we just couldn't break him of the habit,
Wow.
and so life took another turn there. But in the grand scheme of things, I would say this, and of course, I've just lost my wife 3 years ago
I'm sorry.
to Alzheimer, or not Alzheimer's, but Parkinson's, and I
Hmm.
lost my oldest daughter when she just gotten married on a Saturday, and Monday night on her way home from work because he was in the Air Force, and she was going to work until he was deployed, and a drunken truck driver split her in half and killed her. So, and those are two horrible things to lose your wife and your daughter, but and I want this to sound the right way. I've had a great life. I mean, one thing I can say, I've had a great life. And despite the issues once in a while, and people talk about some of the real nasty things that happen. Listen, life's a bitch, and you got to fight it every day. You got to fight it every day to do the right thing. And every once in a while, we slip. We slip on the soap, wherever you want it, whatever you want to call it, and bad things can happen. Bad things can happen to everybody. And what gets me about some of these crazy stories that people say, uh, all the stories are wrong. You know, nobody knows the truth about anything because nobody wants to do any research. And good for them. You know, they got more important things to do, like get on the internet and tell lies. You know,
Yeah.
so we have, but the internet is, I say, the worst thing this country ever invented, that we ever invented in our life, was the internet. It has just taken down privacy. Privacy no longer is a element that we can really believe anymore, and you got to do everything you can to keep your thoughts to yourself.
Well, hearing you say that you had a great life is really inspirational, because I know that you've taken heat, at times,
Sure,
and just you. It's great to hear that you're able to kind of just, put a lot of that in perspective, brush it off, and realize, what's been important to you, and
sure.
the good things that have happened, and everything. So
No,
that's
I've been surrounded by great people, up and down and in between, but mostly great people. I've had great help with an awful lot of things, and my listen. I'll tell you, my family is just the greatest family that I swear to you, born on the earth. I've got 12 granddaughters. 12 granddaughters. As a matter of fact, because of the granddaughters, my one granddaughter at Thanksgiving a couple of years ago stood up and said, Pops, and this is the truth, Pops, we have to ask a question. You've got 12 granddaughters and you had two daughters. Are you gay? I said, What? Am I what? She says, Are you gay? I says,
Denny.
How
I'm
can,
just I'm just thinking, 12 granddaughters. That's a lot of weddings you got to pay for.
listen, that's a lot of sperm you got to pay for. I got news for you. And I had, and I've got a daughter right now in Florida, and I've got a son in Augusta, Georgia, and then a son in Australia. He owns an engineering company, and
Oh,
he's now
wow.
opening up a division over here in the U.S. Finally, thank God. And so that's what I live for. I live for those kids. And I got a daughter that's finally at the age of 49 is going to Italy. Finally, we got
Great.
her to Italy with her sister-in-law. So and I have more fun with those girls. I
Good.
mean, I
Good.
just have fun, fun, fun. And the boys, I sit there, with their arms crossed and say, "Well, you favor the girls so much." I said, why wouldn't I? I said, my God, what's the matter with you guys? But the girls are rougher than the boys, I'll tell you that. And
Well,
over the years, the experience that I've seen, they are tougher and meaner than any guy could ever imagine being.
I hear you. I have a daughter, two sons, so I see it. Well, I want to take you back to baseball again, if I could.
Sure.
I got a question for you, and I'm not sure if you got an answer to this, but I'm curious if you're some single player you'd say was the hardest batter to get out that you ever
I'm going
faced.
to tell you something. I'll give you the same answer I give everybody. I didn't have one. I didn't have one. I will tell you this. I was inducted in the Ted Williams Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. And while I was being inducted, they had Gene Michael, the former president of the New York Yankees, shortstop with the New York Yankees for years, the vice president, general manager at one time before he became president. And Gene Michael introduced me at the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, what the hell was he introducing me for? I don't get it. Gene and I are friends, but I can't imagine him. And every friend I had that I was close to, including Dean Chance and everybody, uh, they were there, and that's what I couldn't figure out because they knew me far better than Gene Michael did. So Gene got up there and started introducing me into the Hall of Fame, and he went through every hit that he ever had off me in 10 years. He had 54 hits off me. Gene Michael.
No, no, that you're not
Gene
54.
Michael had 54 hits off me. And if you put them all together, they would not have hit the center field fence. Honest to God. I must have broken 30 bats of his because he was such an easy out. But to Gene,
Well,
Gene so
yeah.
Joe Pepitone once told me, Michael talks about that all the time. I said, yeah, I know that. And he said, but he admits it. You broke all of his bats. He says, and you never let him get on when the game was important. I said, he was too easy to get out. He's, well, then how the hell did he get 54 hits?
Well, let me. So I was going to ask you the flip side of this question, which was, whose number did you have? Is there someone that just?
I think just about everybody.
Good answer. Good answer.
I mean, listen, I've said it this way. A guy may go 4 for 4 tonight, 3 for 4 tonight, 2 for 4, whatever it might be. The next 5 times, I'll get him 0 for 4 or 0 for 3. And every time you go out there, you try to learn something a little bit more about a guy. You watch where he's standing in the box. Is he moving towards the plate? Is he moving back of the plate? So all of those things have to go in this thing up here. And if you remember those things, and see, these are things that the kids today don't pay attention to. The biggest problem with pitching in baseball today, forget the 5 innings. That's all BS. Because 5 innings is ridiculous. They never learn how to pitch in 5 innings. You learn how to pitch in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. That's when you learn how to pitch. And that's how we learned how to pitch. They don't take you out. It's got to be a good ball game in the 5th, 6th inning. But the bottom line is you got to be able to pitch in the 7th inning. These kids don't know how. Nobody ever sits these kids down anymore and talks theory, talks theology with them about pitching, talks about the things that you do with a 2-0 count, with a 1-2 count, 3-2 count, 3-1, because it's all got to do with the various hitters. And for some reason, they rush these kids in the major league so quick, they don't have time to teach them how to pitch. Sure, they got good fastballs. Yeah, they got decent BS swerves and curves and what have you. But you just watch major league games and see how many guys really have a good breaking ball. They're not there anymore. Everything is kind of sideways with the sideways spin. And the thing that bothers me about that's the reason why we have so many Tommy John surgeries. Because guys, first, let me say this, and I think this is the most important thing. At 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, these guys aren't men yet. They aren't as strong as we will be at 23, 24, 25. We get stronger and bigger and better the older we get there in your 20 to 30, 35 range. These kids are throwing curveballs and sliders from the time they're 13 and 14, 12, 11. And these damn coaches that get away with this, to these parents, they should be run out of the league because they're destroying kids. Today, and I think you know this, they're having Tommy John surgery before they get hurt. My God, what is
they're doing
wrong
it
with these
to
guys?
improve performance.
Yeah. I mean, what is wrong with these guys?
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't get it anymore. Let them pitch. And I tell every kid this when they say, well, what do you think? I will tell the kid this. If you, at your age, let's say the kid's 15, you're 15 years old. If you can't get out every guy at 15 years old with just your fastball, you better think about being a doctor. Because if you ain't got a fastball that gets everybody out at your age, you won't get them. And when I pitched, I threw 80% fastballs almost every game, almost 80%. There's one thing about it. Who's ever hit 400? Who's ever hit 500 or 600? The fastball is still the best pitch there is. It's still the best pitch. I was blessed with one other thing. I had great control. I don't know where the hell I got it from. It had to be from my dad with all the things he taught me. But I had great control, never walked anybody. And that's what it takes to win. Don't walk them, and you'll win more than you lose.
That's great. Well, 2 comments. And look, I don't know anything about pitching mechanics. I mean, I have nothing to add to that part of the conversation. You're the brilliance in all of that aspects of it. But I would just say, of the 1968 season, 31-6. To me, the most impressive statistics were 2 things. One is the 28 complete games, which just blows my mind. I mean, we don't, the league leaders in complete games last season, I looked this up, were 3. They pitched 3 complete games.
By the way, I couldn't wipe my ass at the end of the season, but go ahead.
And then the other statistic was, I believe that the batting average against you was 200.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
which is amazing. My other comment is, my problem with watching baseball now is I can't stand the pitching changes. I mean,
Terrible.
the game goes on so long because they start, bringing in the relievers in, like you said, inning 5, and then they change them every batter practically. And it's just, it's very difficult to watch.
Yeah, it is. It really is. You know, you got to remember too, there are not, like I said earlier, there are not the pitching coaches that used to be in the game, the Johnny Sains, the Warren Spahns. I mean, guys that really knew pitching. Where are they today? I mean, now the manager takes his best friend and he's the pitching coach, or he's the first base coach. He goes out and they've been together for 10 years in the minor leagues or 5 years in the major leagues, and he all of a sudden they are now this great big crew of 4, 5, 6, 10 guys, and in the meantime they lose 80 ball games. I mean, we got the club up here. We got the club up here. They can't shoot straight. I mean, it's just awful. Our guys, everybody said, well, they were 10-10 yesterday, or 12-12, whatever it was, or 20-20, and I looked at him and I said, "Is something great about that?" He says, "Yeah, look what they were last year." I says, "Listen, you wait for 50 games, and I'll tell you where they're going to finish." So we're waiting for the next couple of games to see where they're going to finish. But we've got one pitcher. That's all, the left-hander, and we let the ace go, the kid who looked like Cy Young, for God's sakes, late in the year. But we let him go, and we got a bunch of guys starting every night you don't know. I mean,
Mhm.
every day, every night you could take a baseball card out there and try to figure out who the hell they are. In fact, I said they should have a puzzle every night and give people 10 cards to figure out who the starting lineup it is. And if you win it, you win some money.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I have, I want to be respectful of your time and get you out of here.
All
You have a
right.
lot of travel to go, but I have 3 questions that I wanted to hit you with, and one is, well, I'd love for you to share the Mickey Mantle story. I know you've probably told it many times, but
At
a
least
lot of
two, at
obviously
least three,
people have
at
not
least
heard
three,
the story.
at
So
least 3 million times.
yeah, so that, and then I want to ask you about the Washington Senators. I told people, we're in DC. I was going to ask you about your
Oh God.
experience playing for the Senators and Ted Williams and how that went. And my third one was, I'm a big fan of those early '70s Oakland A's. I just think it was a really fun team. Reggie Jackson, Catfish Hunter, Raleigh Fingers, those guys. And I know you were only there briefly, but I was curious if you had any opinion or
Well, that
views
was
on that.
that was the year. That was the year we went out on strike. And the reason I was traded to Oakland is because not Vita Blue, but yeah, Vita Blue had decided he was going to sit out unless they gave him the amount of money he wanted. So they traded for me, went over there. I pitched rather well, and then they traded me to Atlanta, and which was the kiss of death, because that was that club in Atlanta was worse than a club we have up here in Detroit right now. That's how bad they were. They couldn't catch it. They didn't know they thought a cutoff man belonged in the mob. That's what we thought what a cutoff man was in Atlanta. But it was just a debacle in Atlanta. Plus, we had not Ted, but Eddie Matthews was our manager. Eddie had a personal problem when he joined us in Detroit, and his problem continued as the manager in Atlanta, and he never really got himself straightened out. So we had all kinds of problems with Eddie. And the best thing that ever happened to me in Atlanta was I got released, because it was the pressure was so much there because of the manager and going off all the time on people for no reason, and he had just been made manager. So the last thing in the world you want to do is make enemies of the guys you got to manage, and Eddie just went out of his way.
Mhm.
But as far as Mantle goes, Mickey was my idol. I mean, growing up, as a matter of fact, I was a multimillionaire when I was 10 years old. I had Mickey Mantle in my front spokes of my Schwinn, and I had L. Kaline in my back wheel in my Schwinn. So I don't know, probably worth $20 million at that time. Of course, there was no collecting back then, so
Right.
it didn't make any difference. And 2 weeks, and I had forgotten all about my cards in high school. And 2 weeks after I signed my contract with the Chicago White Sox, my mother threw away all my baseball cards from the 50s and 60s. Threw them all away. I must probably had 1 million cards. So
Any card collector that watches this video, Denny, they're gonna be just
they
oh
just yeah, they just threw up. I agree
yeah.
with you. So As far as Mantle goes, he was my guy. The biggest thrill I ever had, one of the biggest thrills I ever had. One of the first games I ever pitched was in Yankee Stadium, and I pitched against Whitey Ford, and of course Mantle was in the lineup. It was just one of those moments. Win or lose, I got beat, I think, 2-1 that day. And but it was just magic. I mean, here I am, south side of Chicago, Mount Carmel High School, Yankee Stadium. My God, how much better does it get? And but anyway, Mantle come up in 1968, his last game in Detroit. He needed one home run to pass Jimmy Fox. Jimmy Fox had 534 home runs. Mickey needed one more for 535. So he come up in the eighth or ninth inning, nobody on, nobody out, or two outs, and my catcher Jim Price come out. I called Price out from behind home plate, and I said, Price, I said, listen, I want him to hit one. He says, what the hell are you talking about? I said, I want him to hit one. I said, we're winning 6-2. He can't hit a 6-run homer. He says, what do you mean 6-run homer? I said, we're 4 runs ahead, 1, 2, 3, 4. If he hits a home run, it's now 6-2. He says, okay, what do you want me to tell him? I said, just tell him to be ready. He says, I'm not going to cheat. He says, I'm not getting in trouble. I said, you know what? Just go behind home plate. I'll take care of it. He said, you're going to get us in trouble. I said, don't worry about trouble. How are you going to get in trouble by giving Mickey Mantle a break? He says, you think he needs a break now after 500 home runs? I said, listen, this is my guy. I want to be the last guy to give him a home run. So I throw 2 strikes in a row to Mantle. They're 60-mile-an-hour on a hump fastballs. They are just Molly putts could have hit either one of them out of the ballpark. Mickey takes them both and looks so confused. He turns to Price and he says, you think he'll do it again? So Price starts to come out, and Emmett Ashford, I think, was the home plate umpire. And Emmett stopped Price from coming out. And Price and Emmett walked about 3/4 of the way to the mound. And he says to me, and the whole infield heard what he said. He said, are you going to do that again for Mickey? That's the home plate umpire asking me. I said, yeah, tell him to be ready, would you, Emmett? He says, don't worry, I'll take care of it. So he went behind home plate, had a conversation with Mickey. The next pitch I throw, Mickey hits it foul about 600 feet. And then the next time I yelled down at him finally, and I said, where the hell do you want the damn thing? I said, that one was perfect. Where do you want this one? He says, it's got to be a little bit more inside. So I throw it right there knee high because he was a low ball hitter, left-handed. And he hits it. I'm telling you, he hit it over the light poles. He hit it over. There was a cab company behind right field at that time. And he hit it they say on the roof of the cab company across the street. That had to
Wow.
be 550, 600 feet. So he gets all of his accolades, first base, second base, third base. In fact, I've got the pictures of the ball leaving the bat and his swing of the
Wow.
535th. Yeah, we've got the picture.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we got lucky as hell with that. And it was number 535, and it was just a great moment. He got all the accolades in the world. And then the next hitter was Joe Pepitone, Crazy Greasy Joe. And Crazy Greasy Joe yelled the first thing when he got in the batter's box, hey, give me one of them damn things too. I'm on your side. I'm on your side. I'm going to be here next year. I'll take you to my restaurant. I'll buy you dinner. Let me hit one. Let me hit one. Let me hit one. I said, you're right, Joe. You're right. Be ready, buddy. Just be ready. Well, Joe Pepitone wouldn't make a pimple on Mickey Mantle's ass. He's hardly going to get a good pitch from me in the ninth inning with 2 outs. So I yelled down to him. I said, are you ready? He says, I'm ready. I threw him a fastball that almost killed him. It went right I never threw a fastball at somebody's head. If I did throw it up high, it was always in front where he could
Yeah.
always get out of the way. This slipped just a little bit. It slid, almost got him in the back of the head and knocked him down. His bat went up the third base line. His hat went up the first base line. And here's the best part. We didn't know he had a toupee. We had no idea he had a toupee. When his hat flew off, the toupee came off and landed on Emmett Ashford's outside a chest protector.
Yeah.
That's where it was. It was the old song, and it was waving in the wind, and it was just a magic moment. And then of course Joe starts screaming at me, calls me. I don't know why. I don't know what he meant by mother something, but it was mother something. But he kept it up for like 5 minutes, and then we just threw him 3 fastballs and sat him down on his greasy little ass, and the game was over with. But we had so much fun with that, and Joe had a lot of fun with it too once it happened.
That's a great story, and I was hoping. I had heard about the Joe Pepitone piece, and I didn't know if it was true or not, but I'm glad to hear that it is.
Yeah, because I didn't want to hit him. I certainly didn't want to hit him, and but the ball slid and just went behind his head, and thank God the ball didn't hit him. That's all I can tell you.
Well, this has been fantastic, and there's so much more I could ask you about, but maybe we'll have some time for some more stories at the show on Saturday.
Anytime.
Yeah, and again, it's a real thrill and an honor to have you come in and be able to talk to you for this time. We have one of our show dealers is from Michigan.
Oh, really?
And he's been in the chat, said "Go Tigers," and so I'm sure you'll meet him on.
Where does he live? Where does he live?
Well, he's here now. I don't know. Maybe if he's still on, he'll put something in the chat. But
did he get smart?
He's a University of Michigan graduate. So
did he get smart and move out of this weather?
Yeah. He's from Tawas.
Where? Oh, okay, Tawas up 75. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. Yeah. He's in a better place.
Good. Well, thank you, sir, and safe travels to Boston, to New Jersey.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you on Saturday. And that's all. Thanks for making time for us tonight.
I'm looking forward to it. See you guys in a couple of weeks, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.